I am afraid that the Fun Club may not be fun for much longer. If you are not familiar with the Fun Club, it is a project of Temple Emanu-El, founded in 2017 by two members, Alyssa Berger and Jenny Tannenbaum. The Fun Club provides essential services to local refugee families, originally supporting Syrian refugees fleeing Bashar al-Assad's war against his own people. Over the years, those we serve have been a mirror of world conflicts. Those from Afghanistan, Iraq, Central and South America, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and now Ukraine. For these adults, Fun Club offers English language lessons, resume building, job search assistance, and more. For children, the Fun Club offers tutoring and homework help, arts and crafts classes, athletic activities, and socialization opportunities. When they arrive at the temple, they are provided with breakfast and they leave with a bag filled with cleaning supplies or personal hygiene items that are too costly for most of these families. A dedicated core of both congregants and community members show up regularly to volunteer and lend their talents. Teachers from the local schools volunteer and bring their students to volunteer. Clarice, her husband, and their children fled Congo. When they arrived, they knew no one and had no idea how to navigate life in the U.S. Fun Club was the one place where they could find community, where people saw them as more than just refugees. With the help of Fun Club, they found their footing. Today, Clarice is a teacher's assistant, and her husband is a bus technician for New Jersey Transit. But now, our shores are closed. The words of Emma Lazarus, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses learning to breathe free," fall on deaf ears. The pipeline of new immigrants is now empty. We like to think of the United States as a nation of immigrants, but the reality is more complicated. Xenophobia has been part and parcel of American life as well. As Erica Lee, our 2024 Cold SEDEC speaker, writes, xenophobia has been neither an aberration nor a contradiction to the United States' history of immigration. Rather, it has existed alongside and constrained America's immigration tradition, determining just who can enter our so-called nation of immigrants and who cannot. As early as 1755, Ben Franklin complained about the huge numbers of German foreigners coming to the colonies. Rather than assimilating, they maintained the customs and languages of their homelands. Franklin wrote they could never adopt our language or customs any more than they could acquire our complexion. Each wave of immigration to our country has been accompanied by xenophobia. First aimed at German immigrants, anti-immigration fear has been directed at Catholics, the Irish, Chinese people, immigrants from Hungary, Russia, Poland, and Italy, and of course those from Mexico, South America, and Muslims. Just about every one of us in this sanctuary has our own story of immigration. Some are immigrants to the United States. Others are the children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren of immigrants. Many of our ancestors came here during a period of growing immigration. In the 30-year period from 1880 to 1910, close to 18 million immigrants arrived in the United States. Over 1 million Yiddish-speaking immigrants arrived in 1910 alone. They quickly learned that the streets were not paved with gold, nor were they welcomed with open arms. I am sure some of us had Russian and European ancestors who were educated, but most were not. Higher education and the entry to the trades was severely restricted to Jews in Europe and Russia. Any education was had by men, and it was primarily religious. They may have had a small patch of land to farm or a stall in the market. Like immigrants today, our ancestors arrived here with few skills and most likely not knowing a word of English. Like immigrants today, our ancestors took what jobs they could, either in factories or doing piecemeal work from their homes. They may have had a push cart from which they sold items on the streets of the Lower East Side or Newark. Their meager wages meant they could afford only squalid accommodations in the worst neighborhoods. And they were the lucky ones. The Immigration Act of 1917 created a zone extending from the Middle East to Southeast Asia, from which immigrants were now prohibited. A literary test was created with the intent of limiting European immigrants, Jewish European immigrants. In 1921, Congress passed the Emergency Quota Act, for the first time putting a cap on the number of immigrants coming into the country. That became the Immigration Act of 1924, setting the stage for a dramatic shift in U.S. immigration policy. An annual cap of 155,000 people entering the United States was put in place. Moreover, for the first time, quotas were put in place based on country of origin. Of those 155,000 visas, 87% were allotted to those from Great Britain, Ireland, Sweden, and other Northwestern European countries. Countries like Poland, Italy, Czechoslovakia, and Russia shared just 11% of those visas. Asian immigrants were excluded entirely. In 1939, 1 year after Kristallnacht, the combined quota for immigration from Germany and Austria was limited to just over 27,000 people. Most countries, including our own, would not open their doors to immigrants. And those who did not get a visa, well, we know what happened to them. The result was the death of 6 million Jews and millions of Russians, Poles, people with disabilities, religious minorities, and LGBT people. This summer, Colin and I traveled to Berlin on vacation. And my first thought after arriving was that Hitler should be rolling over in his grave. The Berlin and Germany of today is his worst nightmare. Berlin has become an international city with people of all languages and colors. During the war in Syria, Germany took in close to 1 million refugees. And just for good measure, there happens to be a generous Israeli expat community living there. Who would have thought? We dined on wonderful Italian and Middle Eastern food, but could have dined on Asian food or South American food, or Dunkin' Donuts, because they're everywhere. This is a reflection, though, of the new reality. We live in a time of mass migration. Lydia Polgreen writes, about 281 million people now live outside the country in which they were born. And the number of people forced to leave their country because of conflict and disaster is about 50 million, an all-time high. In the past decade alone, the number of refugees has tripled, and the number of asylum seekers has more than quadrupled. Taken together, this is an extraordinary moment. This afternoon at the afternoon service, we will read Leviticus chapter 19, known as the Holiness Code. We will read these words: when strangers reside with you in your land, you shall not wrong them. The strangers who reside with you shall be to you as your citizens. You shall love each one as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am Adonai your God. We read this on Yom Kippur because it is a foundational text. Born of our own experience, we know what it is like to be a refugee. Our ancient text could not have been more eerily prescient given our own recent past. We bear witness to what happens when a people cannot find a safe haven. Yet, this is not an easy command. As Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote, I used to think that the most important line in the Bible was love your neighbor as yourself. Then I realized that that it is easy to love your neighbor because he or she is usually quite like yourself. What is hard to do is to love the stranger, one whose color, culture, or creed is different from yours. That is why the command, love the stranger, because you were once strangers, resonates so often throughout the Bible. It is summoning us now. Did you know that 1 in 4 New Jerseyans is foreign born? Yes, perhaps the people who mow your lawn, but also the home health aide who assists your elderly parent, your professor at Rutgers University, and your primary care physician. That is why I am supporting the New Jersey Immigration Trust Act. This would codify a current directive that would ensure that state resources are used to support local priorities rather than fund federal immigration enforcement. It would protect personal information regarding immigration status. It would require schools, doctor's offices, and hospitals and libraries to have policies so that all people feel safe accessing the services for which they are eligible. Depending on the outcome of the gubernatorial election, these protections could be eliminated. Those ancestors of ours who came here with nothing save for the proverbial candlesticks sewn into a bubby's skirt, those same ancestors who never became citizens because they never learned English, they made sure their children were educated. And their children made sure their children were educated. They became highly successful people. Their children became Jonas Salk, developer of the polio vaccine, whose mother was born in Minsk and had no formal education. Another became Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whose father was born in Odessa. Doesn't the warehouse worker deserve to give his children the same opportunity? Doesn't the woman on the subway selling churros or fruit deserve to be able to give her children the same chance? Doesn't Clarice from Fun Club deserve to give her children every opportunity? Let me tell you about some of her children. Her oldest son now lives in Texas and has a job in the tech industry. One daughter is also a teacher's assistant and is going to school studying speech pathology. The middle child, Camilla, is a junior at Drew University, where she is majoring in neuroscience and chemistry on a pre-med track. Just the other day, Camilla told me how grateful she was when volunteers from the Fun Club outfitted her dorm room when she began at Drew. Who knows? Maybe one day one of us will be her patient. What makes them any less deserving than our own grandparents?